Farmers, trust is everything. At Genesis Fertilizers, we're not just proposing to build a facility, we're building a future designed for you. With real progress already underway, we're closer to providing Western Canadian farmers with a reliable, locally produced fertilizer supply. Now is the time to take control of your farm's future. Learn more at genesisfertilizers.com/credibility.
Let's talk beef markets for the beef market update with Ann Wasco, the Gateway Livestock Exchange. Ann, how are we doing?
I am great today, Sean.
Yeah, you're enjoying early December here?
Yes, it's fine. I know it's just flying.
Yeah. Okay, lots of time to get to Christmas shopping in. I'll start maybe about the 21st-ish around.
Okay.
Are you an early Christmas shopper?
Yeah, for the most part. But
You are.
there's the odd one that stumps me, but for the most part, I'm early. Yeah.
I knew you were a proactive person. Well, we got to be proactive about these markets too. Prices have been strong through the fall. There is risk to manage as well. Something you're pretty passionate about. What's the cash update here right now? What's going on in the U.S. and in Canada?
Yeah, let's start in the U.S., Sean. Kind of a quiet week coming out of the holiday last week for the U.S. So there hasn't been a pile of cattle trade. I did see some cattle in Kansas passing at 190 yesterday, which is steady. So let's assume we're going to be on top of that, but we don't know. There was a little bit of trade in North Nebraska kind of areas, 190, which is anywhere from steady to two lower, and some dress trade in the North at 297. That's up too. So again, I think when all is done, we're going to see things settle out steady or better, but still kind of waiting on it. We did see that choice cutout close about $4.50 lower than last week. So 307.85 on the choice. Things are going to just kind of slow down now as we head into the holidays. A lot of the buying's been done for the season, so this is pretty typical. But again, I think looking back, as we can now that we're into the 12th month of the year, beef demand overall for 2024 has just been, really has had a great run to put it in a nutshell. Just to finish up on prices in Alberta, we did see some improvement in our cash market, 415 dressed. That's 4 to 7 better than last week. The news, I just wanted to remind folks on carcass weights in Canada, we did kind of see them back off. They made their highs there in October, early November. They backed off last week to 977 for a steer weight. 2020, which still sounds big. 2024 is going to finish at about, it looks like 946, 25 pounds heavier than last year. So an annual average historically is about 7 or 8 pounds per year. And this year we're adding 25 to it. So a big jump in weight, same kind of storyline in the US. And again, the economic driver there was fairly reasonable cost of gain, record high fed cattle prices. 1 + 1 = 2. Let's make the cattle bigger.
Yeah, and one of the things we've been talking a lot about, Wednesday we're talking to Jody Lawrence about the corn market, and even going back the past couple of weeks, sideways trade, which is really kind of allowed. Not only we have lower cost of gain for cattle feeders, but we've also got maybe some stability in that corn price, which I probably eases their stomach a little bit.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, now as we start going forward in 2025, we'll be talking about, what kind of opportunities there are, but most of it's going to center around weather, right? I mean, acres and trend line yield and all that kind of stuff. So that'll be the thing that we watch, not just from the grain side, but from the cattle side as well. Yeah.
Speaking of sideways trade, I just pulled up December live cattle. And basically for the past year, and we have floated about in the $15 range, 175 to 190.
Yeah, it's funny how markets, even going back almost a year now, Sean, kind of they made that big move higher, especially on the deferred futures, and the markets have kind of caught up to that, and the market leads, for sure in terms of those futures markets and kind of sets those ranges, if you will. But for the most part, I think our ranges are set for the next little while.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah.
StatsCan did an update when it comes to live cattle exports.
Yeah, we had a couple things out of StatsCan this week. This is for October. And we have been moving a fair number of fed cattle south this year. Go back to the summer when we had the strike in Ontario at the Guelph plant. So we saw lots of fed cattle exports and cow exports back then, but it's continued pretty steady with lots of fed cattle out of the west moving south as well. So in October, our fed cattle exports were up 58%. Year to date, we're up 31%. So we're going to end around, well, right now we're at about 380,000 head have gone south with 2 more months to go. Cow exports were down though. So fed cattle exports up, cow exports down. Year to date, we're down 2%. Feeder cattle exports been super quiet in 2024. They were down in October 32%, and year to date we're down 16%. So the flow has certainly been more on the slaughter cattle. And as you are well aware, feeder cattle supplies in Western Canada, or in Canada for that matter, are tight. And so we're not going to be sending feeder cattle south. On the opposite, we're bringing feeder cattle in.
Yeah, and just market dynamics driving those in that pretty substantial increase in live cattle going south.
Yeah, and I think, a couple of things, folks, our plants aren't running Saturdays. So, we're running at a smaller kill overall in both the US and Canada in terms of not running Saturdays. And so efficiency in terms of where cattle need to go to make the most sense and who needs the cattle from a supply perspective. Just a reminder that Pacific Northwest region is part of our region when we talk about slaughter cattle.
And, I've said it lots, but those north PNW plants or area plants need Canadian cattle. The part of their business plan is Canadian cattle.
Yeah, and especially U.S. supplies are going to tighten some more in 2025. I mean, that's this storyline we're talking about right now. We will be talking about a year from now.
Yeah, and it was Tyson plant closures this week. Also saw Bloomberg had a report that JBS is considering shutting down or scaling back production in 11 of its Brazilian plants. What's driving this right now? Because what I'm reading a lot is it's high prices, but is there more to it?
Oh, I think there is. These things, these plans have been in the works for a long time. So in terms of the Tyson deal, first of all, that was a non-harvest facility. So we're talking about processing. And they had increased their efficiencies at other nearby processing facilities. So to make the processing of beef more efficient, they're moving it to other areas. So yeah, you are closing down some of these older plants. So we shouldn't be all that surprised by that. And then the supply piece, I think the Brazil piece talks to that a little bit. As supplies of cattle, not just in North America, but Brazil as well, get smaller. Well, this year, next year, following year, 2025, 26, you are going to see, of course, that shackle space issue show up a little more in terms of there's going to be, fewer cattle. And we've talked also in other calls about increased capacity in other places, new plants coming on. So we've got more capacity overall in the US than we did a year ago. So it's going to be a shackle space discussion, which is in the cattle feeders' favor at this point in time.
I've been traveling a lot the last number of weeks, and everywhere you go, no matter what part of Canadian agriculture you're talking to, a lot of concern about potential tariffs with the U.S. Probably no group more on that front as concerned as maybe people in the beef industry. I'm sure you've been hearing from a lot of people that read your weekly newsletter.
Well, beef and pork, because both in Canada, both of our industries, rely, beef about half, and on the pork side, well, more than half in terms of exports. And our largest and most important market, obviously, is the U.S. So, your piece that you did a week ago on your panel was great, and I would urge everyone to listen to. The four of you went through a lot of the pieces of it really well, but just to reiterate just how important that is. And we know it, the industry knows it, and we'll have to be proactive, but it's hard to know what it means in terms of, the threats over the bow versus, once we get to January 20th and the work begins.
Yeah, good point. Hey, Ann, thanks so much for joining us here today for the Beef Market Update. All the best. You have a great weekend.
Okay, you too. Thanks, Sean.